In the game of baseball, if you're a pitcher, you cannot develop unless you have a healthy arm. We're here to give you some ideas on how to stay healthy and lower the risk of arm injury. I'm Leo Mazzoni, and I spent 18 years as a pitching coach in the big leagues, was in professional baseball for 42 years, and the thing that I'm most proud of all the achievements of the great staffs that I had a privilege of coaching, is the health of our pitching staff. And now we're going to explain to you how to do that. The most important thing to remember is this. If you remember nothing about this program, please don't forget this. It's called more often, less exertion. More often, less exertion. By that I mean you will teach yourself to throw more often with less exertion. That's one of the main reasons, or the main reason behind a healthy arm. Now, how do you acquire that? You have to get on a mound and practice your craft and trust the amount of effort that you're going to use on the pitch to be effective. Now, overexertion and overextension will hurt your arm. There is no pitch that will hurt your arm, no particular pitch. The fallacy of fastballs, breaking balls, changeups, splits, sliders and splits hurting your arm is not true. What I'm telling you is this. It's how you throw the pitches, period, and the amount of effort that you put on these pitches. And you've got to find out how to control that effort, because if you do, you lower the risk of arm injury. Now, how do you do that? By going down to the mound and practicing and throwing more often with less exertion, trying to acquire some touch on the ball. Now, when you're talking about mechanics and you're looking at guys jerking around and this and that, if you understand the amount of effort to put on the pitches, I'm talking about little league on up to 40-year-old men. If you understand the amount of effort that you're putting on your pitches, it smooths out mechanics automatically. Never think in terms of being overpowering. Always think in terms of being sneaky quick. And if you're a youngster and a scout comes to you, or some coach comes to you and tells you you got to hit a certain number on the radar gun to be effective, I can't say on the air here what you should tell them. But I can tell you this. Anytime you try to pitch up to a radar gun or a radar number, you raise the risk of arm injury. If I was going to ask you, fathers that work out, kids that work out, that run a lot, if I was going to ask you to run 7 miles in a week, where would you feel better? If you ran 1 mile every day, or you ran 7 miles and took 4 or 5 days off and did it again? I can tell you right now, you're going to feel better running 1 mile every day. It's the same with bringing along an arm. When you get back to more often with less exertion, you're trying to acquire touch on the ball without bullying the ball. There's no term for overpowering in our message here. There's no term for a certain radar number. It's called pitching. It's called touch on the ball. And to acquire that, you can get on the mound more often if you do it with less exertion. If you're a young pitcher in the Little League, the Pony League, American Legion High School, college, go on to the professional ranks, you have to have a system in place and be consistent with that system. For example, say you're a young pitcher and in your last start, you had a great game, all right? You have to, in your mind, you have to say, okay, I'm going to get ready for my next start. In your mind, you have to come to this fact that my most important start is my next start. Say in the previous start that you got knocked out early in the second or third inning, and you go to practice to get ready for your next start. In your mind, you have to say, my most important start is my next start. Why do I say that with both scenarios? Number one, if you had a great game, you don't say, well, I got it now, and you go down for your practice sessions down in the bullpen, and you just clown around, okay? The other one is, if you had a difficult start, you can't beat yourself up in between when you're throwing, so therefore, your most important start is always your next start. Now, the amount of effort and the amount of time you put on your practice time in between starts has nothing to do with how many innings or how long you went in the previous outing. It stays the same. You're preparing for the next start. You can't put a number of pitches on it. You can't put a time on it. When I'm coaching pitchers and they're preparing for the next start, we go down there, we go through our assortment of pitches, we take care of our business, and try to leave that bullpen feeling good about yourself mentally and physically. You ever had a pitcher that come to you and say, boy, coach, I stunk last time. Let's go down there. I got to get my stuff right. Well, guess what? That's not going to work. If I had a pitcher tell me that, I'd say, well, we're not going down there then. But if we're going down there to get ready for our next start, let's go. Because that way you control the effort when you're working in between, you're controlling your emotions, and you're preparing for your next start, and you're not lackadaisical and saying, well, I got it now, if you had a good start. All this comes back to what? the amount of effort you're going to put in your practice session, which amounts to what? Amounts to a healthy arm and learning how to pitch under control with more often with less exertion. All right. Now, we're going to start a year out, right? How are we going to get the pitchers ready? How are we going to practice prior to opening day? Opening day can be the Little League. Opening day can be high school. It can be the big leagues. No greater thrill than being on opening day in the big leagues, by the way, folks. Anyway, you have a pitcher and you're going to start him off for his first practice game. And say you want him to pitch 2 innings and throw 30 pitches. Well, that's pretty much a basic scenario. And then as you move forward, you add 15 pitches as he goes in his next outing. But let me ask you this question here. If he went 2 innings and only threw 12 or 15 pitches or was way under the limit, would you send him back out to get his 30 pitches? No, you would not. That is stupidity, okay? What you would do is understand this. He went out for 2 innings. It says innings or pitches. So he had to stop and start. He had to pitch his inning, go in and sit down, crank it up again the second time. That's just as important as a pitch count. Now, let's get to the other scenario. He's at 1 2/3, and he's got his 30 pitches. You going to run out there and take him out? No, that's stupidity. What you're going to do is you're going to give him another hitter or 2 to get the guy out so that this young man isn't walking off the field thinking poorly of himself because he couldn't go 2 innings. Give him the opportunity to get another out with the next 2 hitters or so. That way, when he walks off the mound, he feels good about himself. Now, when you follow up after the first outing, you always add 15 pitches to each outing. It's based on common sense. So if he went 2 innings and 30 pitches, or he pitched his 2 innings, now his next outing is 3 innings and 45 pitches, okay? So you do this with all your pitchers, bringing them along. But you know, one time I had a Little League coach ask me, how many innings should a pitcher pitch in a Little League in a week? So I turned the tables on him and I said, how many do you think? And he said 6 in a week. So I said, okay, if the Little League now is 6 innings, I'm going to say 12. He said 12. I said, yes, 6 on Monday and 6 on Friday with a practice session on Wednesday. If you wanted to bring him back for a couple innings on Thursday, he would play catch on Wednesday to come back on Thursday. Now, here's what the coach asked me. What would the pitch count be? I said, in the Little League? He said, yeah. I said, here's what I would do if I were you. And coaches, pay attention to this. If he was pitching good, I would leave him in. If he was getting his tail kicked, I would take him out. But if he was pitching good and he started to show signs of labor, that's when you take him out. Now, if you need a number or a pitch count to tell you when he's going to labor or when you should take him out, and you can't recognize that fact, then you should not be a coach. Remember, guys, this whole entire program is based on common sense. So allow your pitcher also to give you a suggestion or an idea and listen to him. Listen to what the youngster feels like, what he feels when he throws a baseball. Exchange ideas and take it from there. It's based on what he feels. You can't feel that for him, so if he can explain it to you, that's fine. And remember, don't get too involved with mechanics if they're so young that they don't understand them or they're not coordinated for it. But then once you get to that point, it gets back again to throwing more often, less exertion, and what we explained earlier. But a lot of people now say, well, Leo, how much running should a pitcher do? Well, let me tell you something. In the game of baseball, there is no place for long-distance running. None whatsoever. And I'm going to tell you why. I don't care if a guy can run 2 or 3 miles in under a certain time if he can't get anybody out at the plate, okay? His job is to get somebody out at the plate, and it's called baseball shape. And in baseball shape, baseball is sprinting. The best way, and that's what we did when we would go to spring training. We would get into baseball shape, the hitting, the throwing, the catching the ground balls. Running the bases is a great way to get in baseball shape. Now, when do you do that, and when do you run your pitchers? You would be a fool to run your pitchers before they get on the mound to practice their craft. Why would you do that? Somebody told me a long time ago if your legs were tired, it could get you into bad habits when you were out on the mound. Well, that's one of the ways you take a pitcher out when he's laboring, is his legs start to get tired, and you should be able to see that. Why would you run somebody before you put them on the mound? Run your sprints after your pitching is done. Everything starts on the mound. And guess what, guys? This is all about making pitches under a controlled effort. If you've learned anything in this session, More often, less exertion based on common sense.